Hi everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is the third episode in the Beer Necessities series, and today I'm going to be talking about beer for wine lovers. Okay, so the first beer, we're going to start off with literally one of my favourite beers of all time, and it was only recently that I had this. I think I had it for the first time like a year and a half ago. Basically, I was in my boyfriend's bar in Manchester. He runs a whiskey bar called the Whiskey Jar. It has like a really nice variety of beers as well. And he was like, oh, why don't you try this? We've just got it in. And it's called Triple Carmelite. It's a really nice Belgian beer. The style is a Belgian triple, so that means it's quite high ABV. I think they're from around 6 to 8%. It's a pale, dry, carbonated Trappist beer. And when we say Trappist beer, Trappist is a beer that was brewed in a Trappist monastery by monks. If you're a fan of a nice Chardonnay, I would recommend this beer. It's got some really nice, beautiful, fruity, citrusy esters in it, kind of tasting like oranges and bananas. The malt character that it has is bready. It's kind of a sweet, grainy flavour and almost like honey. And the hop character is almost a little bit restrained. It's quite floral and perfumey, so it's really light. Triple Carmelite, very cheap. If you get it on Beers of Europe, it's like £2 or £3. If you go into a bar, it'll be like 4 or 5. Okay, so beer number 2, we've got Timmermans Lambicus Blanche. I'm literally just like sat here with my Timmermans glass having some apple juice. Okay, so this is still sticking to people who like white wine, but more like specifically a Pinot Grigio or a Sauvignon Blanc. So Timmermans Lambicus Blanche. This is a lambic beer. Lambic beers are a type of sour beer, so it can be quite tart or sour sometimes. This particular one is a white lambic beer. It has a nice sense of tartness to it, and it has added spices, so it kind of introduces a flavour of coriander, orange zest and lemon peel. It also uses wheat, so it's got a nice creamy mouthfeel to it, and it uses spontaneous fermentation. That kind of makes it taste a little bit sour or tart, but it's really refreshing. It's got a nice dry finish and it's really crisp. The only issue is with this one, it is a little bit expensive. If you want to get your hands on a bottle, you're looking to spend around like £50 to £54. Yeah, this is a quite expensive tasting beer, but it's very nice. Cool, so we've talked about a couple of beers for white wine lovers. Time for a beer for a red wine lover. So I'm firstly going to talk about the Rodenbach Grand Cru. So when it comes to red wine, I always feel like Flanders red ales or a Flanders red brown ale really holds a lot of similarities. They're usually sour, fruity, malty beers, and they have a nice dry finish similar to a red wine. The Rodenbach Grand Cru is a really nice example of this Flemish style. You can get loads of other styles. I think a really popular one is the Duchess de Bourgogne. But the Rodenbach Grand Cru is a really traditional style. It's actually an award-winning beer because in 2019 it won the Sour and Wild Beer category in the World Beer Awards. It's a really elegant style, so it's got really nice toasty flavoured malts in it, but it's got a real nice fruitiness as well, sort of plums and oranges. It's really refreshing again, but it's got a nice dry finish. I think if you're a fan of a fruity beer like a Rioja, I think this would be really nice for you. This beer is really cheap. It's like £3–4 online. The Duchess de Bourgogne, really cheap beer, like £2 or £3 if you pick it up online, Beers of Europe. And the next one for a red wine, this is a little bit different. This is quite an expensive bottle to get your hand on as well. Looking at about 60 quid for a bottle, but I thought I would put it in there nonetheless. If you ever get a chance to try one, I would totally recommend. So this is the Cantillon Grand Cru Bruxelles. Sorry if I didn't say that right. Bruxelles is basically the old Dutch term for Brussels. And again, it's a Grand Cru like our previous beer we were just talking about, but it's by a brewery called Cantillon. Cantillon is a really famous Belgian brewery known for making really traditional, amazing styles of beer. Honestly, if you're a wine lover, Cantillon just going above and beyond to make fantastic beers. I had a Cantillon Gueuze the other day. I've been saving it for quite a while and I treated myself to it and it was phenomenal. And it has been said that this beer is the missing link between wine and beer. So if you ever get a chance to try it, please do, but I do understand it's quite expensive. So a lot of sour beers are kind of known for filling in that gap between a beer and a wine, like I just said. And there are plenty of sour beers around that do have similar mouthfeels and taste to wine, be that their fruity essence, the toasty characters, or the drying tannins in them. A lot of breweries like to barrel age their beers once it's been made. If you don't know what barrel aging is, it's basically when you get your beer and you put it in a barrel or a cask that had something else in it. So this could be wine, it could be tequila, it could be gin, I've seen all sorts. But it's really popular at the minute to barrel age your beer in red wine casks. So obviously you're going to get a few characteristics and flavours into that beer that the wine had. There's a really nice sour beer called Oak and Red by Upland Brewery, and it does just that. They've made a lovely sour beer, and it's been aged in red wine barrels, and it's delicious. It's got a really nice jammy grape aroma, and it brings out a lot of red grape flavours into it. It's balanced and it's complex, and it's got a nice juicy sweet finish rather than a dry one. I think this beer would be really nice if you're a rosé drinker or a sweet red wine drinker, and it's not too expensive. You can buy it for about £14–15, and it is in a 500ml bottle, so not too bad. Cool. So for other rosé drinkers, I do think if you're a rosé drinker, maybe heading towards like a fruit beer or like a sour fruit beer would be a really good option. There's a lot of sour beers out there that are quite an acquired taste. People aren't really used to the sour aspect when they have a drink. And that's fine, that's absolutely fine. The first time I ever had a sour beer, I think my head like blew off. But there's a lot of sour beers out there that are really absolutely delicious, and they do create quite a lot of similar tastes to wine. So Brewdog own a brewery called Overworks, and Overworks basically just makes sour beers. They have a really nice series called the Cosmic Crush series, and these are basically beers that are like different fruit. So you've got like Cosmic Crush Peach, Cosmic Crush Tropical. If you're a fan of rosé wine, the Cosmic Crush Cherry is so nice. It's really fruity, obviously has a really nice cherry flavour, a little bit acidic, but it's beautiful. It's really balanced. And then if you are, again, a nice Chardonnay or really sweet white wine lover, the Cosmic Crush Pear is so good. Obviously, it tastes like pear. It's really refreshing, it's really dry, it's quite crisp, but it's really sweet and fruity. And again, another one here for a rosé drinker. So the next beer is Kirkstall Framboise. So Kirkstall is a brewery in Liverpool, but they have a really interesting beer called Framboise that they make in Belgium. Framboise basically meaning raspberry. It's a raspberry fruit beer, and it is to die for. It's a really nice sweet beer, kind of has an almost yogurty aspect to it. Really like nice balanced rounded fruitiness. It's so good. Rather than the previous beers that I just talked about, it's not sour in the slightest. It's really fruity, it's really soft, it's really sweet, it's just so nice. So if you're a fan of nice sweet roses or a nice sweet drink, I would go for this. It's so good. But when we had it in our bar, I think we sold a half of it for like £7, which is kind of expensive, but it's not too bad compared to a lot of things. But if you ever get a chance to try it, please do. You will not regret it. We've talked about red wine, white wine, and a couple of roses, but what if you wanted to have a bit of a celebration and you wanted something a bit like champagne? Interestingly, I actually talked about this beer in my last video, but Wild Beer's Ninkasi is a saison, and it is amazing. So it's called Ninkasi, named after the goddess of beer. It uses New Zealand hops in it. They kind of have a taste like opal fruits, so it's introducing a real nice fruity flavour. It uses fresh Somerset apple juice in there. It also uses champagne yeast, so this introduces a nice spritzy sparkling characteristic into it. It's basically the closest thing to champagne that you're going to get with a beer, and it's just really good. I think it was about £15 to £20 when we had it in our bar, and it is currently sold out because of the pandemic. I tried to get my hands on some, but it's sadly sold out. But it isn't the most expensive beer ever. It's quite reasonably priced, and you do get a 750ml bottle. And if you do enjoy the Ninkasi, I would suggest the Zintuki as well. So in history, Zintuki is Ninkasi's sister. She was the goddess of food and dinner. It still has that nice champagne-y spritziness, and it still has the fresh apple juice. It's just a little more spicier and a little bit different. It has a lemon peel acidity to it, and it uses wild yeast, so it's quite funky and bready. It's a very aromatic beer, and it's super refreshing on the palate, and it's quite fizzy. And that one's actually not that expensive. You can get it currently from the Wild Beer website for £4 for a 330ml bottle, so cool. That has been my little list on some beers that are really nice for wine lovers. I hope this has inspired some of you to kind of try some new beers, or maybe step out of your comfort zone a little bit. I know that there's a lot of beers at the minute that are currently sold out online, but a few places that I've been using over quarantine are Beers of Europe, Beerwolf, and the Beer Merchants. If you're struggling to find something, hopefully that will help you. I hope you enjoyed. If you do have any questions, please just let me know in the comments, and yeah, I'll see you in episode 4. Bye!